Welcome to the Live Well podcast. I'm your host, heatherlapier, and I am so excited to have my friend Linsy with me today. And we are going to talk about codependency and our journeys through codependency recovery and how we learn, how the Lord revealed codependency in our lives to us. So Linsy and I met through Celebrate Recovery at King's Church Valley, and we had the privilege of going through a step study together and learning more about codependency in our lives. And I have a lot of realizations and thoughts about my journey, but I'm curious about how the Lord made you aware of codependency or revealed this in your life, and where that started for you, when you started to actually understand this is something you were struggling with, and how that led you to Celebrate Recovery.
Of course. To start with, I wanted to say that I was in denial about having codependency for a very long time. I went to Celebrate Recovery about 2.5 years ago to work on recovery from a marriage that failed. So while I was there and hearing other people share, I was like, oh, that sounds like me. This sounds like me. And I feel like there's such a big, it's like a negative connotation when it comes to recovery, or when it comes to like things that we might be dealing with internally. And I truly was in denial. I didn't think that I had anything wrong with me that way, but I feel like everybody has something that deep down that they need to work on. And it took a lot of hearing other people sharing and praying and for God to reveal that I do struggle with codependency. And that would be the biggest umbrella of things that, like the little things underneath that I was trying to work on individually, but they're all parts of codependency.
I can totally resonate with the denial piece. A few summers ago, before we moved to New Brunswick, I was struggling and our family was struggling, and people started to say, Heather, you should look at, you should think about codependency and understanding what that is, and maybe seek some help for that. And I just was like, no, that's not something that I struggle with. I misunderstood what exactly it was. I used to think, how could I be codependent? Because I love being by myself.
Yeah.
I consider myself pretty confident. I enjoy time alone. It feels peaceful. And so I just initially, because I didn't understand, wrote it off like, no, this is not something that I struggle with. I don't need help with that. And so the denial piece, and I think sometimes denial too is just like uneducation. I'm so grateful for the knowledge that the Lord provided me with, resources that I remember walking into King's Church and they had the Celebrate Recovery table, and I was like, what's this all about, And I started reading the different pamphlets, and I was like, oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Actually, yes, I struggle with that, so I need help with this, and oh, this is what codependency is. So what is codependency? Let's talk about that. When you started to kind of realize this is something that I struggle with, what did that look like for you in your life?
For me, for the most part, I think I struggled with it my entire life. I don't ever remember a time that I didn't. For me, codependency, I feel like it's my feelings comes last, everybody else's comes first, and I don't accept people necessarily where they are, and I try to fix people, I try to help people. Meanwhile, I'm going without. So that's the biggest one for me. And also not having conversations, not ever wanting to have a hard conversation for fear of rejection. Because I think rejection is something I've been working on a lot lately. And instead of having my needs met, I'll just avoid them completely so that the other person is happy with me or happy in the situation, or I just totally neglect my own emotions and own feelings to appease everybody else.
Yes, I can relate to a lot of that, and very similar with myself as well. And just I think sometimes as mothers too, we struggle to, we are taking care of so many other people, like especially when you go from like a newborn phase, right? Like you're in the throes of like newborn and you're caring for everybody, and then you get a little bit of sleep and you kind of come out of that a little bit, and it's like you've forgotten about yourself and you weren't taking care of yourself. And I have definitely been guilty of making everybody comfortable around me.
Yep.
And trying to fix everything around me, because there's so much turmoil inside of me that I couldn't have peace unless my external circumstances or external surroundings were peaceful. And so I really, one of the things that it shows up in my life when I'm struggling is control.
Yeah.
Like I get really controlling with the kids, micromanaging. I know that I'm like triggered or something's going on when that kind of flares up, the control piece for me. So yeah, I can resonate with like a lot of that.
Yeah, the kids is a big one for me. I find too, like even in my marriage, like the few times we had, like I tried to have tough conversations, it always ended up being a fight. So then I just shut down. What's the point in having a hard conversation if it's going to turn into a fight? So communication is a hard one for me. I'm learning to properly communicate, because you can have a hard conversation without finger pointing.
Yeah.
You can have a hard conversation, without it being a big fight. And our needs are important. They do matter. And so does the other parties.
Yes.
But if we just continue to carry all of our hurts without ever discussing them, then it's just leaves us in a very unhealthy place. And I know that codependency is probably something I'm going to have to work on for forever.
Yes.
Because I've always wanted the approval of everybody else and for everybody else to be happy at my expense. So I know it's not something that's just going to be gone and never have to worry about it again. So it's really an honor and privilege to have a safe space to go where other people are working on the same thing, or maybe they don't even realize they struggle with codependency yet, because it's such a broad array of things like that you could be struggling with. And I was like, oh, anxiety, oh this, but my anxiety always struggled. Like I struggled most with anxiety when other people's actions aren't lining up with how I want them to behave. So yeah, it's a control. Like it just is.
I struggle with that too. It's like you get mad at somebody for not reacting the way you want them to react.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of my life like suppressing my feelings as well, or desires, like things that I want. And I got to a place the last couple of years, like I've started to come out of this. One of the fruits of Celebrate Recovery for me has been, fruits of the Spirit in this journey has been being able to speak what I want or what I think, or express my feelings. And I used to suppress that, thinking, well, I'm not going to be received the way that I want to be received, or I'm not going to get what I'm asking for. Like, I want this thing, but I'm not going to get it, so I'm not even going to ask for it. And I've learned that like there's so much freedom and healing in just like expressing that. Even if you don't get what you want, it's important. You don't know what God's doing through you in simply sharing that. And also, I don't know what God's doing through me in sharing that in the other person that I'm communicating with. And so there's been a lot of healing and freedom in just like, I'm not going to get everything I desire, but it's okay to share my desires, because that's part of who I am. That's part of who God made me to be. And so that's been really healing for me, to just like confidently trust God in who he made me to be, and like what, our feelings have purpose, our desires have purpose.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
and for me too, like for me, like I still even struggle with like boundaries and telling people no, like, because I do want other people to be happy.
Yeah.
But for me, I think like right back from the beginning, and just being able to acknowledge this now is such a huge, it's a huge fruit for me, because it was denial, and it's not healthy to be sitting there and not understand. Like, I had no idea that there was anything even like going on this way with me. So now I do. It's like a privilege to be able to research it, to study it, to like find out where God wants me to heal. And if you pray and ask God, he will reveal the areas you need to recover, even if you're in denial about them. But for me, it's rejection. Like, I feel like, and even being able to like acknowledge this is a huge step for me. Like, just about everybody, except for my parents, that I thought loved me, ended up not, or rejecting me in some way. So that's something I'm healing. And now that I am actually walking with the Lord and asking Him and seeking His will for my life, like I know there's rejection's inevitable, like it's going to happen.
Yes.
But I've tried to do things without God or doing things my way, and they just don't work out. So really, like but now I know. But now I understand why I feel that way. Now it doesn't, like, it's not affecting me as bad as it was because I understand why I'm feeling that way, and knowing that my feelings matter, and if someone else doesn't reciprocate the way I feel, that's okay. They don't have to.
The acknowledgement piece and like awareness piece is so freeing in itself.
Yeah.
Like the Lord bringing that to my attention as well. And you almost feel like a crazy person when you're trapped in it and you're in denial, or you just don't understand what's going on. It feels, because I feel like I finally got off that wheel of like, I still have emotional hardship. I still have challenges. I still have, days where I'm not doing so great, but I don't feel like I'm on this endless wheel that's not going anywhere. I feel like I'm off that and making progress forward with that awareness.
Yeah. I think it's all part of like your daily inventory and like being self-aware.
Yeah.
Instead of like just doing it over and over again and just saying like this is just who I am. Well, it's part of who I am in this moment, but it's not who God created me to be.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you have experienced any, so we go to Celebrate Recovery, which is a recovery program for any hurts, hang-ups, and habits, but there is sometimes a misunderstanding even with that recovery program that there are people who are in recovery for drug addiction, alcohol addiction, those types of addictions, but it's for other things like codependency. So in your journey of attending Celebrate Recovery and sharing that with people in your life, have you experienced any like pushback or any sort of negativity from people in your life that are like, well, Linsy, you seem like you love the Lord and you're like pretty awesome, healthy person. Like, why do you need to go to recovery?
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. I have people all the time. Well, I know you don't struggle with addiction, but what are you in recovery for?
Right.
I hear that so often, like everything. I want to be healthy for my kids. I want to be healthy for myself. I want to be healthy for my future partner. I want to be able to give them the best of what God made me to be. Like, I feel like it's a privilege and an honor to be able to let God refine me. It's not always easy, but it's beautiful. Like,
such an incredible community.
It is, yeah. And just the step study group that we had, like, what a blessing.
Such a blessing.
What a blessing to have all you ladies to walk through life with. Like, it's a privilege.
I agree. I feel so grateful for that step study and for everything we learned, and for the Celebrate Recovery community.
Yeah,
we call each other, the leaders, we call each other forever family, and that feels so loving and welcoming. And one of the things that you said at the beginning too, like, this is a lifestyle, right? These are habits and lifestyle changes that help me. It's helped me create more intimacy with the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other way that codependency has affected me is it made, like, so for example, with people pleasing, I was making the approval of others like a god in my life. It was like an idol. And so through this journey, it continually like breaks down these strongholds and these idols that were in my life that were keeping me caged. And when God is placed in his rightful place, I feel like I have then more freedom to just like be who I am.
Yeah.
And more confidence to be who he created me to be, the more that he is placed. And so for me, Celebrate Recovery, just continually every week, I feel like it's just like, okay, ensuring that God is in his rightful place.
And really, like, how freeing is it when you finally get to a place where you're not going to please everybody? It doesn't matter how you behave, what role you try to take on, who, like, you could try to be 500 different people for 500 different
It's
versions
exhausting.
of you to make 500 different people happy, but you're still not going to make everybody happy.
And it's literally exhausting.
It is.
Like I would, one of the physical differences that I have, physical healing that I have experienced through this journey of recovery is I no longer get to my weekends and feel dead. I would literally blast through the week trying to keep everything perfect and like working in my own strength. That's what it was. Like it's just this working in my own strength and striving in my own strength, and just the enemy was just dangling the carrots, and like I was chasing, and I would get to the weekends and my mental health would just be so dark and so exhausted. I would be so depleted, and I just feel like this steadier rhythm, this healthier rhythm has been brought into my life.
Me too. Yeah, me too. Like going from a marriage like with my ex for 11 years, and he was a hands-on father, like he was a hands-on father, to being a single mom of 3 kids it's taken me the 2.5, almost 3 years to get into a routine of half normalcy. My house is still a mess half the time. Like things aren't the way I would envision them to be, but it is a growing and healing process, and we need grace for ourselves.
And hope.
Yes, there is hope. Like I don't have to be stuck in this cycle of. And I went to the step study, and almost every week introduced myself. They said like I'm struggling with anxiety and depression, but when I actually do my inventory and do my charting, my anxiety and depression stems from my codependency.
Right.
I'm allowing other people's behaviors and feelings about me and towards me in these hard conversations. I'm letting that affect my anxiety, but now I know.
So good. Praise the Lord for the way that He reveals things in His perfect timing and in safe environments where we're supported, in places where we have tools and things that we can grow, and He provides that to us. So if you're listening to this and you are like thinking, okay, I struggle with some of the things that these ladies are talking about, what advice would you give somebody that's like, okay, I'm resonating with this. This is really new. I feel like you're talking to me. What advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, come to Sierra and keep coming back.
Yes.
But be vulnerable. You can't hide things from God. He sees it anyways. But until you're vulnerable and open with other people and with God, that's when the healing begins. Like God knows anyways. So if you're hiding it from Him and hiding it from everybody else, you're only hurting yourself. You're really only hurting yourself, and there's so much freedom in wanting the best that God has for us.
That's right. And it's a safe place. It's such a safe place. And in allowing yourself to be open and share, I thought this share stuff is so silly. When I went to my first share group, I was like, what is the point of this? Like, this is so silly, but I'm just actually so many of the things in my life that I need. I always start out with like, this is ridiculous, but I need change so bad that I'm just going to trust the process. But in my head, I'm like kind of judging it. And so I like do it. And then I remember the first time I shared, I couldn't even talk because so much, like I didn't even realize how much I was holding in, and it was just all coming out. And it's like this unraveling. And it feels good. At first, it's so scary, but then it feels so good.
It does.
So yeah, I would say find a Celebrate Recovery. It's not just in New Brunswick. It's all across North America.
Yeah.
All across North America.
United States,
Yeah, and it's a safe place, and there's people there that have walked the road, and they want to walk alongside you, and they love Jesus, and they will point you to Jesus over and over again. Yeah. And just start like allowing that stuff to come out.
Yeah. And that's exactly where I'm at right now. Like I live, and yes, I still struggle, and yes, I will continue to work on my recovery, but if I'm following God and His will for my life, there's people that are not going to like me, there's people that will like me, but the right people will like you. The right people will come into your life, and you don't have to live ashamed. You don't have to live hidden, because there are other people dealing with the same.
Yes, and that's the other piece of sharing, right? We're bringing it into the light, and in a place that we're under the authority of Christ, and so it's bringing it into the light of Christ. And so it's a safe place. And then it's, if you're ever feeling like you have to hide something, it's just a place where the enemy is keeping you trapped and he's keeping you locked up, and you don't have to be staying there. You can just bring that into the light.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so good. So we're just praying that this message blesses whoever needs to hear it, and we are huge fans and advocates, and in the lifestyle work of Celebrate Recovery, we're so grateful for how this program has touched our lives. And if you're interested in learning more, you're not sure where to find like a website, you can send me a message. And we just want to encourage you to lead the life you were made to live. Thank you for listening.